Welcome to another episode of Chad Sports Talk. You don't know, my name's Chad. Take a dive into sports. Welcome to the Week 9 NFL recap video. We go over last week's action, see how well I did in picking these games, and we'll kind of go over some interesting news as well. But before I dive into all that action, if you could go ahead and give me a thumbs up, especially like the content I provide you. It really pleases you two guys. Really helps put the channel out. You also subscribe. Love you guys review my work. I love you all for doing that. Now, many of you subscribe. This costs you a dime. Helps me provide more entertainment value for you. Now, going over my picks, I did not do so well. This entire weekend has been abysmal. I didn't pick the correct World Series winner. Houston ended up winning that one. I picked Philly. I really wanted the underdog. College football went 5-7. My worst weekend in college football. It was just a wild weekend in college football. That's just wow. And this week in the NFL, I didn't do much better. I actually have a winning record, so it's not my worst week ever so far in NFL. I am going 7-6. I had to wait till Monday night till I got that 7th win. That was, yeah, that's one of those bad weeks for me. So let's go ahead and just kick this off with last Thursday's action. We had Philadelphia going into Houston. The exact same time frame, you had the same cities going out in the World Series in Philadelphia, which is kind of funny. And the Texans were actually keeping up with the Joneses. They were right there with Philly, going blow for blow. They were doing everything they possibly could to kind of keep themselves in contention. So there's things going the right direction down in Houston. I think Lovie Smith has got them the mentality. However, they don't have the right pieces to really get them over that hump just yet. So we'll just kind of see what happens down there in H-Town with the Texans, but they couldn't sustain it. Halftime was all night up at 14, and the second half, that's when Philadelphia just took off. They just ran off. The defense stepped up, shut down Houston. You know, Pierce had almost a wonderful performance. Almost 140 yards rushing. No touchdowns on the ground. Jalen Hurts was doing what he had to do, over 240 yards passing, 2 TDs, especially 100 yards to his his favorite tight end, Gillert, and then you're getting one of those touchdowns as Philadelphia end up escaping Houston with a 29-17 victory to still be the only undefeated team. They possibly have the easiest path to go undefeated, go 17-0. I don't see that happening because there's just too much pressure on a team if we want to do that, because then you got to look at, okay, how are we going to maintain that same trajectory in the playoffs? Winning 3 more games there to be the Super Bowl champions, to be 20-0. I don't think we'll be able to see that again in NFL just because there's too many games. This is the old school NFL, back to the 73 Dolphins and 72-73 Dolphins. That's the thing, the time frame, is they only played 12 games then. So a little bit easier for them to do it at that time frame. Not so much modern NFL. But only time will tell. We'll have to wait. Their matchup next week is pretty favorable for them as well. So we'll see. Another time to head out to Chicago, where the Bears were playing host to Miami. And this one, I thought Chicago would put up some points, but I thought their defense would not be able to stop the passing attack of the Dolphins. I mean, you get 2 very good receivers in Waddle and Hill, and it's really hard to really kind of do that. And then you don't know what Tua's going to do. He's going to throw, he's going to run it. So it's a conundrum for defenses to try to corral Miami. Chicago was hanging around. They were battling back and forth. Justin Fields had more rushing yards than he had passing yards. He set a record for most rushing yards by a quarterback since the Super Bowl era with 178 rushing yards. He ran for 178 yards. Miami had no answer for him on the ground. which kind of led their defense to kind of figure out, okay, how are we going to stop Chicago? Because if we don't, we got to contain Justin Fields so he can get out, so then leaves him open, and he starts finding receivers. I mean, he had the Kmet for 2 touchdowns. Claypool was not much of a factor, which I didn't think he would be. But Tua had an answer. Every time Chicago scored, Miami was right there to ensure that they had their answers. Tua had over 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Including one to Tyreek Hill, and had 143 yards receiving and a touchdown, doing backflips in the end zone. But at the end of the game, Miami's still leading, but Chicago had it. And they were driving, and unfortunately that last possession they had, they could not connect with the receivers. St. Brown actually dropped a surefire first down on a fourth down play. That was it. Miami holds on and escapes Chicago 35-32. And this the corner Chicago needed to turn to get their season, or at least, looking at Justin Fields and going, okay, this is the talent we got. This is the reason why we want to go get him. Let's start building around him. That's why they got Chase Claypool. But then they got to work on the defense now, and they got rid of their 2 best players. Then we head down to Atlanta, where the injury-laden Chargers came to town to take on the Falcons. Cordell Patterson came back from injury for the Falcons, kind of helped them out as well. So it was more of a Band-Aid type of a bowl game, it seems like, between these two. And actually went back and forth, really. Just tale of who won which quarter. And I mean, that's basically how it boiled down to. It was 14-10 at the half, lead by the Chargers. Atlanta ended up getting that lead, and then San Diego. I still call them San Diego. I'm so used to them being there. But the Chargers ended up tying it, and then towards the end of the game, they were just milking the clock. They're able to kick a game winner as time expired, as the Chargers escaped Atlanta 20-17. Behind 245 yards by Justin Herbert and his only touchdown, as the Falcons had this opportunity to take the lead in the NFC South, but couldn't. And just this NFC South, this NASCAR division, is going to have a losing team making the playoffs. Doing up to the jungles of Cincinnati, and you had your cat fight between the Panthers and Bengals. But it looked like P.J. Walker lost the playbook, and maybe, landed in the Bengals a defensive lap, and they were just able to stop him every sort of way. Joe Mixon was having a phenomenal day. He had 4 rushing touchdowns, over 150 yards rushing. He had a total of 5 touchdowns, which is a team record for one player to have scored that many touchdowns. They were up early, 35-0 at half. It was a one-sided affair. The Panthers looked like they were the clawed cats out there. The Panthers looked like they were the clawed cats out there trying to get in a street fight, and nothing was happening. Walker was benched in the second half. Baker Mayfield came out. He ended up getting 3 touchdowns, but it was too little, too late. Cincinnati just rolled over Carolina, 42-21, to go to 5-4 on the season, and Walker went on the edge with Carolina and got a loss. But we're heading up to Detroit, where the Lions playing host to the Packers. This was an ugly game. No two ifs, ands, or buts about it. This was an ugly game. It was ugly for Aaron Rodgers. It was ugly because of the score. Actually, it's beautiful, Aaron Rodgers. That's just me. But he was not being he wasn't being himself in this game, to say the least. He was making some really poor decisions on the field. He barely throws interceptions. He ended up throwing 2 in the red zone that cost him the game. For these past few weeks, he's been blaming everyone else. Guess what, Rodgers? This one's on you. You failed to make the right calls. You failed to throw the right passes to the right receivers. You failed to lead this team to a victory over an opponent you have a good time playing against. So Detroit did just enough, ended up winning 15-9 and really just tanking Green Bay's season. Then we head up to Foxborough, where the Patriots are playing host to the Colts. And this one didn't get much thing to the Colts because they were just the Colts right now is just a garbage fire of a team right now. There was a lot of expectations about Indianapolis coming to the season, and it's gone the wrong direction. Ellinger, who took over for Matt Ryan, been sacked 9 times. So the offensive line is so paper thin that they light breeze and they fall over. They've got rid of their offensive coordinator. They got rid of defensive coaches. Nothing has worked at Indianapolis to rectify the situation. The Patriots defense was too much for them. Just stall them and roll them over. They didn't really do much offense. They didn't really have to. As New England just rolled over Indianapolis 26-3 to keep New England's playoff hopes alive. And things in Indianapolis are just getting worse. But more on them later. Now we head down to New York, where the Jets were playing host to the Bills. And who saw this one coming? The Jets stepped up and played phenomenal. They weren't the dismantled super airlines on the tarmac. They came out to be A-10 Warhogs, strafing enemy tanks in the battlefield. These guys were just all in Josh Allen's grill most of the game. I mean, he was still able to have great runs. He ended up having 2 rushing touchdowns, but he also threw 2 picks, and he even had a fumble. He couldn't get much going with Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs had over 90 yards receiving, but no touchdowns. Zach Wilson was just being efficient with the ball and didn't make too many mistakes. There's possibility now that Josh Allen has something wrong with his UCL, which is a ligament in his throwing elbow, which could take him out for a few weeks. Nothing concrete as of yet. They're still waiting on more tests to find out if he's going to be shelved for an extended period of time. I know their backup is a guy who's been around for a while too. He was also a starter at Minnesota. So they got at least a decent backup that can throw the ball to Stephon Diggs. And they have a good enough defense to be able to keep him in games. So I think if Josh Allen goes out, probably about four games, more likely, that will kind of like the Dak Prescott situation down in Dallas. I think that's what will happen in Buffalo. But I think Buffalo's going to be in a pretty good position to be still relevant, but that's beside the point. The Jets upended the Bills 20-17, and the Jets now are a half game behind Buffalo in the AFC East. Who would have thunk that one? Now we head down to D.C., where the Commanders are playing host to Minnesota, and the return of Kirk Cousins. And this was a team that drafted him. He was their starter for a while, and they just ended up leaving because they weren't paying the money. And the Minnesota has been a quiet team thus far, as they've been building these wins and just continuing to win. They don't win pretty, they're not flashy, but they continue to win. And it's a good all-around team effort a lot of times. I mean, you still have Jefferson, who does phenomenal receiving for Kirk Cousins. Now they know to get that tight end for the situation rectified. Delvin Cook's a good running back, but he didn't really do much in this game. He barely made 50 yards. So Washington's defense is actually a decent defense if they can stay healthy and operate as a unit. Heineke is a decent quarterback as well. And they just went back and forth. It came down to, once again, the final play. Minnesota was just moving along, slow and steady. They weren't being rushed. They weren't trying to rush anything out there. They're just tick, 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 just taking off the time. Set up a game winner, and that was it. Minnesota wins in Washington, 20-17. They put the Vikings 7-1. Who would have thought that? And guess who they lost to? Fly, Eagles, fly. Now we head down to Jacksonville, where the Raiders came to town, and this is another franchise that had a lot of high hopes coming into the season, and they have yet to live up to expectations at all. I mean, they started up and had a huge lead. I think at one point they led by 17. Derek Carr almost had 260 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Him and Devontae were actually hooking up. Devontae had almost 150 yards with 2 touchdowns. So their bromance was alive and well in the first half. The Raiders are a team that there's just a team of two halves. They do well in one half and it just implode in the other one, kind of like how Baltimore did at the beginning of the season. And they had a double-digit lead, and Jacksonville just chipped away. They kept doing everything they had to do. Anthony had almost 110 yards on the ground for the Jags for 2 touchdowns. And Jacksonville came back and beat the Raiders 27-20. They put them 0-5 on the road. They set a team record for most losses after leading by double digits. So this experiment going on in Vegas is something completely wrong, and they need to do something. But that defense just coughed up way too much. So we'll kind of see what happens in the offseason with them. Then we have Arizona, where the Cardinals and the Seahawks were doing a battle of the birds to see who would win. This is the kind of rematch because early in the season, Arizona went to Seattle and lost. And I thought, with it being at home, I was going with Arizona. Figured, okay, they'll handle this one. But Geno Smith is having one of those phenomenal years. Walker has stepped into the shoes very nicely now as the number 1 running back and replaced a Penny for his injury. He was a great running back out of Michigan State. And Seattle just had, every time Arizona scored, Seattle scored. It was too much. The Geno Smith was just phenomenal. 275 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns. As the Seahawks sweep the Cardinals 31-21 to make them probably the most dangerous team right now in the NFC West. Then we have to Tampa, in a battle between the past 2 Super Bowl champions, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Los Angeles Rams. First time that's happened in a while. First time that, when 2 previous Super Bowl champions face off, they're both below 500. These 2 franchises are supposed to be the opposite direction. They're supposed to be sitting on top of their divisions, being winning records. Tampa Bay is top of their division, but that's because the division is really bad. Injuries have played a huge factor in a lot of the playing abilities of these teams. And I was looking at the defensive mindset and looking at the Rams. I'm like, okay, you got Aaron Donald on the defensive line. You still got Bobby Wagner in the linebacker core. Floyd as well. And you also got Jalen Ramsey secondary. So I thought the Rams defense is a little bit better. They should be able to get to Tom Brady and disrupt him. Not so much. It was not the case at all. This is something I think the Tampa Bay needed this game as much as the Rams needed this game to turn their season around. And the fact that they were battling back and forth through adversity. It was probably the best bad game you can watch. I think I heard someone say, and it was it came down to the end of the game where that the Rams had it, and they're being very conservative. And Cooper Kupp was doing a running play, and he gave himself up like 5 yards away and started to slide instead of cutting back inside to maybe get 2 more yards to keep the clock running. They could change the whole aspect of the game plan, whatever. So I think that's more of poor coaching and maybe the poor execution by Kupp. Very rarely does he do that, because he still had a phenomenal day anyways, and they had 27 yards receiving and a touchdown. But inability to force Tampa Bay to really force Tampa Bay, but the inability to really fight for that first down and really kind of ice the game gave Tom Brady a chance to come back, and he did. He orchestrated a nice comeback victory as the Buccaneers corrected their collapse and beating the Rams 16-13. One of the most ugly games you could watch. But something that Tom Brady needed. He needed something a little positive in his life with all his on-field and off-field issues. And you can tell in his post-game press conference and his opening line, you definitely tell he was relieved to finally get that victory. And put them in a tie for the NFC South with Atlanta at 4-5. Then we have the Kansas City for Sunday night matchup between Tennessee and Kansas City, and this one was a doozy. Tennessee's defense was all over Patrick Mahomes. Early in the game, Tennessee ran through Derrick Henry, which was what I expected. Overall, he had 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns, the only 2 touchdowns Tennessee scored all day. It was in the second quarter. As Tennessee had a halftime lead 14-9. And this is one of these games where a lot of people were picking Tennessee because of how well they play each other. But as it went on, it was just the Chiefs have so many different receivers that Patrick Mahomes can throw to. Just besides Kelsey over 100 yards receiving. He had a bad drop that he should have got a penalty for when he threw his helmet off the field after the play. But I think that was also after, play was dead, and I think it was like turnover of possession or something like that. So one of those things that doesn't get called. I don't know. The refs are pretty inconsistent when it comes to helmet coming off after certain time frames. So that's going to be a huge discussion probably at the end of the offseason with the referees on that aspect. But besides that one, the Chiefs defense actually stepped up in that second half, and Malik Willis had barely any time to do anything back there. They went away from Derrick Henry for some reason. They tried him a few times here and there, and Kansas City was able to kind of stifle him a little bit. But Derrick Henry's just one of these guys, you just keep giving the ball, and he'll find a way. He'll slay the dragon and go rumbling down the field. And Kansas City had a hard time trying to come away from that Titans defense, as Patrick Mahomes spent a lot of time running around the field. Which is also a bad thing because you let him run around the field. It was like a long third down play. And it was like, okay, there's no way to do it. He ended up running forward the first down, which changed the dynamic of the Chiefs. And they started to really start going. It's like the fourth quarter and then making this huge drive. They're down 17-9. So they had to get that touchdown 2-point conversion. They ended up getting that touchdown. 3 tries because of penalties on the defense. It's ridiculous. But they didn't get a 2-point conversion. 17-all. They head into overtime. Kansas City gets the ball. It's like, oh, here we go again. They're going to end up winning overtime on a touchdown? No. The Titans defense stepped up after about 7-minute drive by the Chiefs. They ended up only kicking a field goal. So the ball went back into Malik Willis's hands, and the Chiefs defense just would not let him have time. Once a receiver for the Titans was open, it was already too late. Malik Willis was running for his life in the backfield. And his inexperience kind of showed because normally you throw the ball away if you don't see an opportunity so that we don't lose yards. You got a lot, 2 huge sacks, and that was it. Chiefs hold on, beat Tennessee 20-17, put them in the tie for first place in AFC with the Bills, but they're behind them because the Bills beat them. And that's just one of those really good games got to watch. And then we kind of go to Monday night. We had the Saints and the Ravens go at it. Roquan Smith making his debut for Baltimore. And he was a huge, huge impact on the game. I mean, he was a force to reckon with. Andy Dalton barely had any time to do anything, as per usual. Threw a couple more picks again. It's the same thing with the Saints offense. Kamara had no true things really going anywhere. Lamar Jackson was able to get his 100th career touchdown pass. He did some great runs. He went at it with his offensive line because he got delayed game. But they winning anyways. It was just a good defensive game for most of the game. 14-3.5 for Baltimore. They just continued to stay ahead of the Saints and beating them 27-13, moving to 6-3 on the season. And that's when I end up, like I said, that was my last win. Put me to 7-6 in a wild weekend. Some other huge things. Forgot to mention, Tom Brady had passed for 100,000 passing yards. You can't do that when you're 90 years old, still out there playing quarterback. I'm just playing. He's not that old, but still. I don't think he'll be coming back next year, but you never know. He's probably one of these guys will be out there in one of those motorized carts just throwing the ball. That's just Tom Brady. And then now it's time to go back to the Colts situation. I mentioned that earlier. There were some other things going on. After that, this past weekend, the Colts then fire Frank Reich. And then they turn and hire Jeff Saturday. Now, Jeff Saturday is a long-time Indianapolis center. He's been a consultant with them. His only coaching experience was high school football. Now, going over Twitter, now I'm going, this is a slap to all the black coaches out there. It's not a slap to just to them. It's a slap to all coaches that Irsay decided to go with someone that has zero experience coaching college or NFL. Zero. And he's wrote that, and he's like, I want somebody that doesn't have any coaching experience. They don't have any fears. Just started as a coach any type of level beyond high school. He's going to have fears. Now, I like the guy. I find him very entertaining. No way in hell I'll put him as a flipping head coach. You have other coaches on that staff that could fill in the role. Then people saying, well, it's only interim. What if he's good? What if he's good? What if he ends up winning the rest of the games? I doubt it, but what if that happens? Do you think they'll let him go? No, they'll sign him. I don't know. I think he was just going with somebody that he was comfortable with, that he's familiar with, and realized that he wasn't expecting much. I think someone on Twitter is like said it perfectly, tanking with friends. I think that's what the Colts are doing. I don't see the GM staying because you look at how many quarterbacks are ran through that organization. Ryan's your best choice at quarterback. You need to get that running game running. That's part of the problem. They don't have a running game right now. That offensive line is just bad. No, there's a lot of things wrong with Indianapolis, but the fact they end up going, they think their season is so bad, they got somebody with zero coaching experience at the pro or college level. I mean, you could go after Skip Holtz. I mean, he was an XFL coach. I mean, at least, you consider that pro. He's coached at college. I mean, you cannot go after him. You can go after quite a few other guys that are probably a little bit more advantageous. But I think they're just weighing their options afterwards. Maybe, the Kansas City OC will finally get his chance to be a head coach. Maybe that's why they're waiting for is for him. I don't know. I mean, the Colts right now, they're laughing stock in the NFL. Plain simple. Not sure what they were thinking, but nothing against Jeff Saturday personally. Like I said, I like the guy. He's very entertaining. He knows what he talks about when he's analyzing other teams and their plays, but does that really translate well as being the head coach? We'll wait and see. I mean, if he was signed on as a offensive lineman coach, makes perfect sense. That's what he did. I mean, you look at most coaching trees, they start off as a position coach somewhere and then work their way up, and that's how they get there. But I don't know. Definitely interesting fact that they decided to go that direction, and only time will tell to see where this ends up going. But interesting times indeed. Well, there you go. There's the recap of Week 9. They kind of got a little sidetracked there. I do apologize. Like I said, I went 7-6. A lot of these games I did not see going the way they went. And of course, I don't think a lot of people did. I don't think a lot of people saw the Jets winning, unless you're a diehard Jets fan. And some of them just bad decisions on my part. I mean, it happens. But hey, let me know down below which game shocked you the most, which game you're most impressed with. How is your team doing thus far? Because I don't think mine's going to be making a playoff push anytime soon, but hey, you never know. What do you think about the Jeff Saturday ordeal? Do you think it was a wise choice by the Colts picking him as their head coach, or should they went somewhere else internally and get one of the other position coaches or assistants to take over? So let me know down below. While you're there, make sure you hit the thumbs up once again. You can also share this video with friends and family. It helps promote this video out. Once you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell and let you know the next time I post any more content on my channel. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.